Ryan Matthews sat in his small room at the Space Academy and stared at the computer screen. The map showed all the places in the galaxy where humans were not allowed to go. Most of space was painted red with warnings. Only a tiny corner was green where humans could travel freely. His roommate, Jake Morrison, was getting dressed for class. Jake looked worried when he saw what Ryan was doing. "You are going to be late for navigation class," he said. Ryan did not look away from the screen. "Jake, something is wrong with these maps," he said. "We are the only species that needs permission to explore most of the galaxy." Jake stopped putting on his uniform. "Ryan, you know better than to ask these questions. The Alien Council explained everything when humans joined Galactic Society. Those red zones are dangerous. They could destroy entire planets." Ryan finally turned around. His blue eyes were angry. "Dangerous for who, Jake? I have been watching the reports. The bird people send scouts through Sector 7 every month. The crystal beings have minds in places we are told will kill us. But somehow humans are too weak and stupid to handle the same risks." Jake moved closer and spoke quietly. "You are talking about restricted information, Ryan. The teachers said that questioning the limitation treaty means immediate expulsion from the academy." Ryan stood up from his chair. "What if the treaty is not about protecting us, Jake? What if it is about protecting them from us?" Before Jake could answer, the computer made a sound. A message appeared on the screen. The sender was Director Helen Crawford, who ran the discipline board. "Ryan, your recent searches into restricted star maps have been flagged for review. Report to Navigation Lab 7 immediately." Jake grabbed Ryan by the arm. "Please tell me you were not actually trying to access the forbidden zones through the Academy computers." Ryan straightened his uniform slowly. "I was not trying to access them, Jake. I was studying the energy readings from the border areas. There's something out there that does not match anything in our science books." Jake's voice went high with panic. "Energy readings, Ryan, those sensors are only for training. Changing them to scan beyond authorized areas is a serious violation." Ryan smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Actually, it is the most serious violation possible. I checked all the rules before I did it." Jake stared at him. "Why would you want to get caught?" Ryan walked toward the door. "Sometimes the only way to find truth is to make enough noise that they have to notice you are looking for it." As Ryan walked through the clean white hallways of the space station, he thought about the strange readings he had found 3 days ago. The energy was not just unknown. It was impossible according to everything humans had been taught about science. It pulsed like a heartbeat, as if something huge and ancient was calling across empty space. Other students moved out of his way as he passed. Word about his discipline hearing had spread quickly through the Academy gossip network. Most looked at him with pity and fear, as if his rebellion might spread to them. But some watched him with what looked like hope. Navigation Lab 7 was in the restricted part of the station. Only senior teachers and students in serious trouble could enter. The heavy doors opened as Ryan approached. Director Crawford stood next to a floating display that showed his modified sensor readings in uncomfortable detail. "Cadet Matthews," she said, without looking at him. "Do you know why the limitation treaty exists?" Ryan stood at attention and stared straight ahead. "To protect humanity from galactic dangers beyond our understanding, ma'am. That is the official reason, yes." Crawford turned to face him. Her expression was impossible to read. "But I want to know your personal opinion. You have clearly thought about this a great deal." The question felt like a trap, but Ryan had already gone too far to be safe. "I believe the treaty exists because someone is afraid of what humans might find if we could explore freely." Crawford nodded slowly. "And these sensor changes you made, what were you hoping to discover?" "Answers, ma'am. The energy signature I detected breaks all known laws of physics. It is almost like something is trying to communicate across impossible distances." The director said nothing for a long time. Then she went to her personal computer and typed commands that made Ryan's sensor readings disappear. From the floating display, "Cadet Matthews, you are now transferred to deep space. Reconnaissance training effective immediately. You will report to the exploration ship UTS Meridian in 2 days for an extended mission beyond normal patrol routes." Ryan blinked in confusion. "Ma'am, I do not understand. I expected to be thrown out of the academy." Crawford smiled for the first time since he entered the room. "Sometimes, Cadet, the rules need to be broken by the right person at the right time. Your curiosity about that energy signature is not the first time a human has detected something the Council wants us to ignore. The difference is you are the first brave enough to risk everything to investigate it. As Ryan left the lab, his mind was full of questions. But one thought was stronger than all the others. In 2 days, he would finally have the chance to find out what was calling to humanity from the darkness between stars. Ryan returned to his room to find Jake packing his belongings. The news of Ryan's transfer instead of expulsion had spread through the academy even faster than news of his rule breaking. Jake looked up with relief and confusion mixed on his face. "I thought you were finished here," he said. "Instead, you get assigned to the most advanced exploration program in the fleet." "How does that make sense?" Ryan sat on his bed and thought about Director Crawford's words. "Jake, what if there are others like me? What if some teachers and officers have been asking the same questions I have been asking?" Jake stopped packing. "You think there is some kind of conspiracy?" Ryan shook his head. "Not a conspiracy exactly. More like people who think humans deserve to know the truth about our place in the galaxy. People who think we should not have to ask permission to explore our own universe." That night, Ryan could not sleep. He kept thinking about the energy readings that had started everything. The signal had felt familiar somehow, as if it was meant for human minds to understand, as if something was waiting out there for humans to be brave enough to find it. The next morning brought new rumors through the academy. Other students had heard that ships were being prepared for missions into areas that had been forbidden for centuries. Some said the limitation treaty was being quietly renegotiated. Others claimed that humans had been secretly developing new technologies that made the old restrictions unnecessary. Ryan did not know which rumors were true, but he could feel that change was coming. His rebellion had started something bigger than just one cadet breaking rules. It had opened a door that had been locked for 300 years. In 2 days, he would step through that door and find out what lay beyond. The UTS Meridian was nothing like the smooth training ships Ryan had used at the academy. This ship was built for long trips into dangerous space. It had thick walls and backup systems for everything to keep the crew alive in the worst places the galaxy could offer. Captain Lisa Donovan met Ryan in the ship's meeting room. Her face showed the marks of someone who had spent many years pushing the limits of human space travel. Next to her stood Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner, who ran the ship's science department. Even at the academy, everyone knew about Turner's reputation for research that broke the normal rules. "Welcome aboard, Cadet Matthews," Captain Donovan said as she pointed to a chair at the round table. "I understand you have become very interested in strange energy readings." Ryan nodded carefully. "Yes, ma'am. Though I am still not sure why that interest got me transferred instead of expelled." Turner leaned forward with bright, excited eyes. "Because, Cadet, you are not the first human to detect those signals. Over the past 50 years, almost a dozen deep space crews have reported similar things. Each time, the Galactic Council ordered the reports classified and the crews moved to normal patrols within human space. But this time, Captain Donovan continued, we have decided to investigate. Before we file our report." The meaning of those words hit Ryan hard. "Ma'am, that is a direct violation of Council rules. If we are caught, Turner interrupted, humanity might finally learn why we are the only species in the galaxy forbidden from exploring our own neighborhood. Captain." Donovan turned on the room's floating display showing a 3-dimensional map of local space with their planned route marked in blue. The path went directly through 2 forbidden areas before ending at a region marked only a stellar anomaly classification pending. Official mission, she explained, is to do routine maintenance on deep space monitoring stations. Our real mission is to follow that energy signature you detected and see where it leads. Ryan studied the route, feeling his heart beat faster. "How long will it take to reach the anomaly?" 3 weeks, Turner replied, "assuming we do not meet any Council patrol ships along the way." The next 3 weeks passed quickly as Ryan prepared for what they might find. He studied everything the ship's computers had about the forbidden areas they would cross, but the records contained almost nothing useful. Most had only basic star maps and repeated warnings about unstable space conditions that posed risks to navigation systems. Turner finally gave some real information during one of their daily meetings. "The thing you need to understand, Ryan," he said while pulling up historical records from humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, is that when we were invited to join galactic civilization, we were like children, being told which rooms in the house we could not enter." Ryan frowned. But that was 300 years ago. Surely by now, By now we should have grown beyond the need for such restrictions, Captain Donovan agreed. But every time a human crew is asked permission to expand our exploration areas, the Council has found new reasons to say no. On the 18th day of their journey, the ship's sensors finally detected the source of the energy signature that had started Ryan's rebellion. What they found challenged everything they thought they knew about the nature of space itself. Captain called out Ensign Kate Phillips from the sensor station with disbelief in her voice. "You need to see this." The main screen filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Floating in empty space before them was a structure that could only be described as a crystal city. Its many-sided surfaces pulsed with the same rhythmic energy that Ryan had detected from the Academy. "It is beautiful," whispered Dr. Nina Rodriguez, the ship's chief medical officer. Turner was already running every sensor scan the ship could manage. "It is also impossible. The structure is over 100 kilometers across, but our gravity sensors show almost no mass. It is as if the thing exists in normal space but follows completely different physical laws." Captain Donovan stood slowly from her command chair. "Ryan, this is your discovery. What do you think we should—" Ryan stared at the impossible city floating before them, feeling a strange sense of recognition, as if he was looking at something he had been searching for his entire life without knowing it. "We need to go inside," he said quietly. "Whatever built this wanted to be found. That energy signature was not random. It was a beacon." 4 hours later, Ryan found himself in a protective suit following Captain Donovan and Turner through an airlock that should not have worked with human technology, but somehow did. The inside of the crystal structure was filled with soft, warm light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. They had walked for nearly an hour through corridors that changed their size and shape to fit the human visitors when Turner's scanner began showing massive energy readings ahead. "Whatever is in there," he said, pointing down a wider corridor that ended in a room filled with brilliant blue light. "It has been waiting for us." The room beyond was huge, with a ceiling lost in shadows high above. At its center stood a pillar of pure energy that pulsed with the same rhythm they had detected from across the galaxy. But it was the voice that spoke to them from the pillar that stopped them completely. "Welcome, children of Earth," it said in perfect English. "I have been waiting a very long time for one of you to find me." Ryan stepped forward with his heart pounding. "Who are you?" "I am the guardian of memory," the voice replied. "I am what remains of those who came before you. Those who built this galaxy's first civilization before the Council learned to fear them." Captain Donovan's voice was barely a whisper. "Came before us. Humanity's ancestors," the Guardian continued, "once ruled this galaxy. They built wonders that spanned star systems and created technologies that the current galactic powers still struggle to understand. But they made one mistake. They trusted those they had helped to share in their discoveries." Turner was frantically recording everything, though his equipment could barely process the data streaming from the energy pillar. "What happened to them?" "They were betrayed," the Guardian's voice carried sadness that seemed to span thousands of years. "The Limitation Treaty was not created to protect humanity from galactic dangers. It was designed to ensure that humans would never remember what they once were and never reclaim the power that is their birthright." Ryan felt something awakening in his mind, as if doors that had been locked his entire life were suddenly opening. "That is why the energy signature felt familiar. It was calling to something in our DNA." "Yes," the Guardian confirmed. "And now that you have found me and chosen to break the rules that were meant to keep you weak, it is time for humanity to remember." The pillar of energy pulsed brighter, and suddenly the room was filled with floating images of vast human cities in space and technologies that challenged current understanding, and star maps showing human expansion across the entire galaxy. "But I must warn you," the Guardian continued. "The moment you activate the memory protocols, every power in the galaxy will know that humanity has found its way home. They will do everything possible to stop what comes next." Ryan looked at his companions, seeing the same mixture of excitement and terror in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. Then he turned back to the Guardian. "What comes next?" "Everything blazes," the Guardian replied. "Are you prepared for that responsibility?" Ryan thought of all the rules he had broken to reach this moment, and all the restrictions that had been placed on his species, and all the questions that had driven him to risk everything for answers. "We are ready," he said. The moment Ryan spoke those words, the Guardian's energy pillar erupted in a wave of light that seemed to go through not just the crystal room but reality itself. Ryan felt something basic change inside him, as if genetic locks that had been sleeping for thousands of years were suddenly opening across the galaxy. Every human being felt the same thing at exactly the same time. On the farming world of New Montana, a man named Ben Cooper was checking his grain storage when the wave hit him. Suddenly he could see the tiny movements in the soil and understand the structure of his crops, and know farming methods that could make his harvests 3 times bigger. In the shipbuilding areas around Mars, an engineer named Grace Liu was welding metal plates when her mind expanded to understand the entire ship's design. She could see problems in the power core and improvements to the navigation systems and changes that would make the ship faster than current technology thought possible. On Earth, in the government buildings, Senator Patrick O'Brien was reading trade agreements with alien nations when his mind suddenly filled with knowledge about galactic economics and resource sharing, and the hidden ways that humanity had been kept economically dependent on other species for 3 centuries. But it was the children who changed the most dramatically. 8-year-old Emma Watson was playing in her family's garden on the moon colony when the awakening hit. Her vision exploded outward, letting her see the patterns of energy that connected all living things. Within hours, she was controlling those patterns, making plants grow faster and healing hurt animals with just a touch. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting started within 6 hours of the awakening. Their communication rooms filled with panicked voices from representatives of dozens of species. The humans are changing, reported Ambassador Zeth Ka of the blue-skinned aliens. His transparent skin flickered with stress patterns. Our monitoring stations are detecting massive increases in their technology development. They are building things that should not be possible with their level of knowledge. The crystal being's representative, called Facet Prime, pulsed with urgent frequencies. Our mining operations in Sector 12 have been approached by human ships that appeared without any detectable way of moving. They asked us to stop taking materials from a world they claim belongs to them. High Chancellor Morex the Ancient, reptile being who had controlled galactic policy for over 1,000 years, raised his scaled hand for silence. How many human worlds have reported these strange events? All of them, whispered the gasping observer, with fear rippling through his form. Every human colony, every outpost, every ship in space. Whatever has happened to them has happened to all of them at once. Meanwhile, on the UTS Meridian, Ryan was learning to deal with his own transformation. The knowledge flooding his mind was not just technical. It was cultural and historical and deeply personal. He could see the true history of humanity's rise and fall and understand the subtle ways the Limitation Treaty had been designed to suppress not just human exploration but human evolution itself. Captain, he said with a new authority in his voice that made even Donovan look at him with surprise, we need to get back to human space immediately. The Council will respond to this awakening, and their response will not be peaceful. Turner was still trying to process the data his instruments had collected from the Guardian. Ryan is right. According to these readings, the energy pulse did not just affect humans in local space. It spread across the entire galaxy instantly, as if it was sent through some kind of quantum connection network. Captain Donovan studied the star charts with new understanding, seeing patterns and connections that had been invisible to her just hours before. The Guardian said humanity once ruled this galaxy. If that is true, then there must be other installations like this one and other caches of knowledge and technology. There are, Ryan confirmed, with his consciousness still partially connected to the Guardian's vast memory banks, hundreds of them scattered throughout the forbidden sectors. The Council has been using them for centuries, reverse engineering human technology and claiming it as their own innovations. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been quietly running medical scans on the crew since their return to the ship, looked up from her readings with amazement. The genetic changes are not just mental. Your DNA is literally rewriting itself, activating sequences that have been dormant since before recorded history. If this process continues, humans will be unrecognizable within a generation. As the Meridian began its journey back to human space, they met the first signs of the galaxy's response to humanity's awakening. A Galactic Council patrol fleet consisting of 12 heavy warships from 4 different species was waiting for them at the edge of the forbidden sector. Terran. Vessel, came the transmission from the fleet commander. You are ordered to submit to immediate boarding and inspection. Your crew will be detained for violation of galactic security protocols. Ryan moved to the communication station feeling an instinctive understanding of the alien technology. "This is Cadet Ryan Matthews of the Terran Space Forces. We are returning to our home system and request free passage." Cadet Matthews, the voice carried a note of surprise. "You are listed as the individual responsible for starting this crisis. You will surrender yourself immediately or your vessel will be destroyed." Ryan smiled, feeling power flowing through him that he was only beginning to understand. "I do not think so." He placed his hands on the ship's control systems, and suddenly the Meridian was moving in ways that challenged normal physics. They slipped between the patrol ships like water flowing through fingers, leaving the enemy vessels. Weapon systems mysteriously offline. "How did you do that?" Turner asked in amazement. "I did not," Ryan replied. "The ship did. All human technology was designed to respond to our enhanced abilities. We just forgot how to use it." As they approached the solar system, they found it transformed. Human vessels that had been upgraded with recovered technologies were moving between the planets at impossible speeds. Space stations that had taken decades to build were being expanded and improved in a matter of hours. And around Earth itself was a defensive grid that made the planet look like a jewel in a crown of pure energy. "My God," Captain Donovan whispered. "We did all of this in 3 days." "This is just the beginning," Ryan said, with his eyes reflecting the light of humanity's reawakening. "The Council is gathering their entire fleet. They know that if we are allowed to continue this transformation, their 1,000-year control of the galaxy will come to an end. On Earth, the emergency session of the human Parliament was unlike anything in recorded history. Men and women who had spent their careers managing humanity's careful relationship with galactic civilization were now discussing plans that would have been considered madness just days before. Prime Minister Victoria Hayes stood before the assembly with her own enhanced consciousness, letting her see the political implications of humanity's awakening with perfect clarity. "Fellow citizens," she began, "we stand at a crossroads. For 3 centuries, we have accepted our role as junior partners in galactic civilization content. To explore the small corner of space we were allowed, and grateful for the technology others chose to share with us. But we now know that this humility was not earned through wisdom. It was imposed through deception." The Parliament erupted in voices, some calling for immediate military action, others urging caution and diplomacy. But Hayes raised her hand, and something in her presence commanded instant silence. "The Galactic Council is already gathering forces against us," she continued. "Their fleets are moving toward our borders, and their diplomatic messages speak of corrective action and species rehabilitation. They do not intend to negotiate with us as equals. They intend to ensure that we never again remember what we once were." Senator O'Brien stood from his seat. "Madam Prime Minister, what are you proposing?" Hayes smiled, and in that expression was the echo of a species that had once spanned the galaxy. "I propose that we remind them why they feared us in the first place," as if planned reports began flooding in from across human space. The colony worlds were rapidly developing technologies that surpassed anything in current galactic civilization. Human explorers were reclaiming star systems that had been declared too dangerous for centuries. And deep in the forbidden sectors, ancient human installations were awakening with their automated systems responding to signals that had been dormant for 3,000 years. The galaxy was about to learn that some rules once broken could never be restored. 3 weeks after the awakening, the galaxy was completely different. What the Galactic Council had first dismissed as a temporary human problem had grown into something that threatened the very foundation of their civilization. Ryan Matthews, no longer just a rebellious cadet, but now serving as humanity's connection to the recovered Guardian system, stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, watching real-time reports stream in from across human space. The transformation was accelerating beyond anyone's wildest dreams. "The Armstrong colony has successfully activated a planetary defense grid that our ancestors built 3,000 years ago," reported Commander Steve Walsh, with his enhanced consciousness allowing him to process and connect data from hundreds of sources at the same time. "The energy output readings are beyond our measurement scales. That is not the most remarkable part," added Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief researcher. The colonists did not need to study ancient manuals or decode forgotten languages. The moment they approached the installation, they simply knew how to operate it. Ryan nodded, understanding the implications better than most. The awakening had not just restored human technological abilities, it had reconnected humanity to a genetic memory that spanned their entire history in space. Every human alive was now in touch with the experiences and knowledge of their ancestors who had once ruled the galaxy. But the Galactic Council's response had been swift and brutal. Incoming priority transmission from the frontier, announced Lieutenant Amy Chen from the communications station. It is from the Kepler system. The holographic display filled with the image of Governor Ryan Bell with his face grim from the weight of the news he carried. Behind him, the sky was filled with the trails of atmospheric combat. New Geneva, we are under attack. Bell reported with his voice steady despite the explosions visible through the windows behind him. 3 Council fleets jumped into the system 6 hours ago. They are demanding the immediate surrender of all enhanced humans and the deactivation of our recovered technologies. Ryan felt cold anger building in his chest. What is the status of your defenses? Bell smiled grimly. That is the interesting part. Our orbital platforms are holding against ships that should outclass them by centuries. It seems our ancestors built very well. The transmission ended and Ryan turned to the tactical display showing the positions of Council fleets throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated confirmed hostile action against human colonies. There were 37 of them. They are not just trying to suppress the awakening, Ryan realized aloud. They are trying to wipe us out entirely. Commander Walsh nodded gravely. Our intelligence indicates that the Council has classified humanity as a galactic threat, requiring immediate containment. The euphemism they are using is species rehabilitation, but the leaked communications suggest they are planning a complete occupation of human space. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her research station where she had been analyzing data from the Guardian installations. Ryan, there is something else you need to know. The awakening is not just affecting humans currently alive. We are detecting activation signals from installations in star systems that have been uninhabited for thousands of years. The implications hit Ryan like a physical blow. The automated systems, they are responding to the awakening protocol. More than that, Vasquez continued. According to the Guardian's historical records, humanity once had a network of autonomous defense and exploration systems spanning the entire galaxy. If those systems are coming online, she did not need to finish the thought. Ryan was already accessing the Guardian network through his enhanced consciousness, with his awareness expanding across light years of space to touch systems that had been dormant since humanity's fall from galactic dominance. What he found there made him stagger. Automated shipyards were awakening in distant star systems, with their construction protocols beginning to build vessels designed by minds that had understood the universe in ways the current galactic civilization could barely comprehend. Defensive installations hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae were powering up with their weapon systems calibrated to protect human colonies that no longer existed, but might again. And deep in the galactic core, something vast and patient was stirring to life. My God, Ryan whispered. We did not just rule this galaxy. We built it. The communication system chimed with an incoming transmission on a frequency that should not have existed. The signal was coming from the direction of the galactic core, and it was powerful enough to reach every human settlement simultaneously. Children of Earth. The voice that emerged was similar to the Guardians, but older, more vast, carrying the weight of eons. I am the keeper of the deep paths, last of the central minds that guided your ancestors' expansion across the stars. I have slept in the galaxy's heart for 3,000 years, waiting for your return. Ryan stepped forward, speaking for all of humanity. We are here. We have awakened. But the Council fears what you will become. The Keeper interrupted because they remember what you once were. They have spent millennia convincing themselves that their betrayal of humanity was justified, that your ancestors were tyrants who needed to be overthrown. But the truth is simpler and more damning. They destroyed human civilization because they could not bear to live in its shadow. The tactical display updated, showing new contacts appearing throughout the galaxy. Ancient human installations were coming online by the thousands, with their automated systems responding to the Keeper's activation signals. But that was then. The Keeper continued. And this is now. Your species has learned wisdom in exile, gained compassion through suffering. You are not your ancestors, and the galaxy you will build will surpass even their greatest achievements. Commander Walsh was staring at the tactical display in amazement. Sir, we are detecting massive energy signatures from forbidden sectors throughout the galaxy. Whatever is awakening out there, it is big enough to power entire star systems. Ryan felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders like a familiar cloak. The rebellious cadet who had violated protocols to investigate an anomalous energy signature was gone, replaced by something larger and more purposeful. Open a channel to all human colonies, he ordered. It is time to remind the galaxy who we really are. The transmission went out across human space, reaching every settlement from the newest frontier outposts to the ancient cities of Earth itself. When Ryan spoke, his words carried the authority of 3 million years of human evolution and the backing of technologies that could reshape reality itself. Citizens of humanity, he began, for 3 centuries we have accepted the limitations placed upon us by those who claim to know better. We have explored the small corner of space we were allowed to develop the technologies. We were permitted and asked politely for permission to grow beyond our designated boundaries. On 1,000 worlds in 1,000,000 homes, humans stopped what they were doing to listen, but we are not a species that asks permission. Ryan continued with his voice growing stronger. We are the children of explorers who crossed impossible oceans of inventors, who harnessed lightning of dreamers who reached for the stars and made them our home. And today we remember who we are. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across human space, defensive grids powered up construction. Projects that had taken years to plan were completed in hours in exploration. Fleets began launching toward star systems that had been forbidden for centuries. But it was the message that arrived from Earth that truly announced humanity's return to galactic prominence. Prime Minister Hayes appeared on the communication channel, standing in front of a view that showed Earth's orbital space, filled with structures that seemed to grow from pure energy and human will. To the Galactic Council, she said with her voice, carrying across the galaxy on frequencies that bypassed all known communication networks, humanity formally withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and protocols that have limited our development. We reclaim our sovereign right to explore, expand, and evolve without restriction. She paused, and when she continued, her words carried the promise of fundamental change. Your fleets are attacking our colonies even as I speak, attempting to destroy what you cannot control. But you have forgotten that we are not the same species you defeated 3,000 years ago. We have learned from our mistakes, grown beyond our flaws, and returned to reclaim not just our place in the galaxy, but our responsibility to it. The transmission ended, and across the galaxy, the ancient human installations began to move. Ships that had been waiting in hidden docks for millennia launched into space with their crews composed of synthetic minds that had preserved human knowledge and values through the long exile. Defense platforms that could withstand the explosion of stars positioned themselves to protect human worlds. And deep in space, construction began on something so vast that it would be visible from other galaxies. The Council's response was predictable. Their fleets, already engaged with human colonies, received orders to escalate their attacks from containment to extermination. But they quickly discovered that the humans they were fighting were no longer the species they had once conquered. The battle for the Kepler system ended within hours as human defensive systems that had been dismissed as impossible began systematically disabling Council ships without causing casualties. The attackers found their weapons inoperative. 6 months after the awakening, the galaxy had become unrecognizable. What had begun as one cadet's refusal to follow the rules had evolved into a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization itself. Ryan Matthews stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest achievement called New Horizon Station. The massive orbital platform was positioned at the galaxy's gravitational center. The station was both a diplomatic center and proof of what human ingenuity could accomplish when freed from artificial limitations. Its living walls grew and adapted to their inhabitants' needs. Its quantum computers could process information across multiple dimensions, and its defensive systems were powerful enough to protect entire star clusters. The Council delegation has arrived, announced Ambassador Kelly Foster, humanity's new representative to galactic affairs. They have requested a private meeting with you before the formal negotiations begin. Ryan nodded, with his consciousness briefly touching the vast network of human installations that now spanned the galaxy. In 6 months, humanity had reclaimed over 1,000 star systems. established trade relationships with species the Council had claimed were extinct and begun construction projects that would reshape space itself. But perhaps more importantly, they had done it all without a single act of conquest or aggression. How many species have requested to join the new alliance? Ryan asked as they walked toward the diplomatic chambers. 47 as of this morning, Foster replied. The gas beings were the latest. They said they have been watching our expansion and are impressed by our policy of voluntary association rather than forced subjugation. The observation stung because it was accurate. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained order through a combination of economic dependence and military intimidation. Species that stepped out of line faced sanctions, blockades, or worse, but humanity's approach was fundamentally different. When humans had reclaimed the mineral-rich systems of the Perseus Arm, they had offered partnership agreements to the species already mining there rather than simply taking over. When they had established new colonies in previously dangerous sectors, they had invited other species to join them as equals. And when Council forces had attacked human settlements, the response had been to disable rather than destroy, to protect rather than retaliate. The diplomatic chamber was a marvel of adaptive architecture, with its walls and furniture shifting to accommodate the various species present. High Chancellor Morex sat at the center of the Council delegation with his ancient reptilian features, showing the strain of recent events. Around him were representatives from a dozen species, all looking like beings who had seen their carefully ordered world turned upside down. Cadet Matthews, Morex began, with his voice carrying centuries of authority that no longer seemed as absolute as it once had. It is Director Matthews, now, Ryan corrected gently as he took his seat across from the Council delegation, though I understand the confusion. 6 months ago, I was just another rule-breaking cadet. Things change. Morex's scaled features tightened. Indeed they do. In 6 months, your species has violated every protocol that has maintained galactic stability for 3 millennia. You have militarized prohibited sectors, activated technologies that were sealed for good reason, and encouraged other species to abandon the treaties that have prevented galactic war. Ryan leaned back in his chair with his enhanced consciousness allowing him to perceive the emotional states of everyone in the room. Fear, anger, desperation, and beneath it all a growing recognition that the old order was ending whether they accepted it or not. Chancellor Morex, Ryan said carefully, I think there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about humanity's intentions. We are not trying to destabilize galactic civilization. We are trying to improve it. Improve it. The Crystal Collective's representative facet prime pulsed with indignant frequencies. You have rendered our trade networks obsolete with your gift technologies. You have made our defensive fleets irrelevant with installations that can protect entire sectors. You have even begun terraforming dead worlds faster than we can process the environmental impact reports. Ryan smiled at that last point. The terraforming projects had been one of humanity's most visible achievements, transforming lifeless rocks into garden worlds in a matter of weeks. But they had been careful to work only with worlds that were genuinely dead, avoiding any disruption to existing ecosystems. And the result, Ryan pointed out, has been the elimination of resource scarcity throughout the local galactic arm. No species under our protection has experienced famine, energy shortages, or territorial conflicts in the past 6 months. Your trade networks are obsolete because trade itself is becoming obsolete. When every world can produce whatever it needs, the concept of scarcity loses its meaning. Morex leaned forward with his ancient eyes blazing with frustration. You speak as if these changes are universally beneficial, but you ignore the chaos you have created. The economic systems that have governed galactic civilization for millennia are collapsing. Species that have depended on controlled resource distribution for their survival are being forced to completely restructure their societies, and we are helping them do it, Ryan replied. The hegemony of Tau Ceti was facing economic collapse when their primary export became unnecessary. So we helped them develop new technologies, establish new industries, and create a society based on innovation rather than exploitation. They are happier, healthier, and more prosperous than they have ever been. The blue-skinned representative, Ambassador Zeth Ka, spoke for the first time. But at what cost? Your transformation technologies do not just change individuals, they change entire species. The hegemony citizens you helped are no longer the same beings they were before your intervention. Ryan felt a flicker of annoyance at the implication. They are exactly the same beings, Ambassador. They have simply realized their full potential instead of accepting artificial limitations, just like humanity did. That, Morek said quietly, is precisely what we are afraid of. The admission hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Ryan had suspected it, but hearing it stated so directly still came as a shock. You are afraid that other species will become what humanity has become, Ryan said slowly. You are afraid that if everyone reaches their full potential, your authority will become meaningless. Our authority, Facet Prime corrected, has prevented galactic war for 3,000 years. It has maintained stability, enabled peaceful coexistence, and protected weaker species from stronger ones. If every species becomes capable of the technologies you have demonstrated, the galaxy will descend into chaos. Ryan stood and walked to the chamber's main display, activating a holographic map that showed the current state of the galaxy. Green markers indicated human allied systems, blue showed neutral territories, and red marked areas still under council control. Look at this map, he said. 6 months ago, the red areas represented order maintained through fear, and the green areas were a handful of human colonies accepting whatever scraps of space you allowed them. Now the green areas represent voluntary associations of species working together for mutual benefit, and the red areas are shrinking every day as more civilizations choose cooperation over control. He turned back to face the delegation. You are right that change is frightening. You are right that the old systems are breaking down, but what is replacing them is better. No species in our alliance has gone to war with another. No world under our protection has experienced famine or poverty. No individual has been forced to accept limitations on their growth and development. Morek's expression was unreadable. And what of those who prefer the old ways? What of species who do not wish to be improved by human intervention? They are free to choose their own path, Ryan replied immediately. We have never forced our assistance on anyone. Every species that has joined our alliance has done so voluntarily, and any that choose to leave are free to do so. But you make that choice increasingly difficult, Zethka pointed out. When a species' neighbors are all enjoying the benefits of human technology and protection, the pressure to conform becomes irresistible. Ryan acknowledged the point with a nod. That is true. But the pressure comes from results, not coercion. When people see others living better lives, they naturally want to know how they can achieve the same thing. That is not manipulation. That is progress. The discussion continued for hours, covering everything from trade agreements to territorial boundaries to the philosophical implications of species-wide transformation. But Ryan could sense that the real negotiation was happening beneath the surface, in the growing recognition that the Council's authority was based on conditions that no longer existed. Finally, Morex called for a recess, and the Council delegation withdrew to their private chambers. Ryan remained in the diplomatic hall, with his consciousness expanding to touch the network of human installations throughout the galaxy. The reports streaming in were uniformly positive. The automated terraforming systems had brought 3 more dead worlds to life. The exploration fleets had made contact with 2 previously unknown species, both of whom had requested immediate alliance agreements. And most remarkably, the deep space construction projects were ahead of schedule. They are going to surrender, Ambassador Foster said, joining Ryan at the observation window. Not immediately and not in those words, but that is what this negotiation,